Welcome to another episode of the Sports Enthusiast podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Randak, joined by neither of the guys today. Sadly, these guys are in basketball and they're really busy. So, it's just going to be me for today. Probably going to be a shorter episode. That's just kind of how it goes. I'll try to get it to maybe an hour if possible. I do have a couple notes down, but we'll just kind of play it as we go. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at The Sports Enthusiast. We're on Twitter at SportsENTPod. You can follow us there. Let us know what you think about the podcast. Let us know what we can improve on, or what we do well. Let us know who you might compare us to. Let us know your thoughts on our different opinions. Really, anything helps. So we would appreciate any feedback that you guys can give. With that being said, with Ashton and Lucas in a barn today, we're sorry about that, but we'll just get right into the power rankings. FYI, I am recording this on Friday, right after the Colts-Texans Thursday night game, which was 17-20. Texans barely pulled it out in the end, but that was a really good game to watch, I would say, especially if you like defense. And that's actually where I'm going to lead off my power rankings at number 10, the Houston Texans, coming off a rough loss to the Baltimore Ravens for 40-something to 7, I believe it was, 2 weeks ago. This week they bounced back on Thursday night, got the win against the Colts. It wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins had a big game. Deshaun Watson's the man. We all know that. So they're my number 10 team. I don't really know where to put, kind of where I stand on the Texans. They're looking like they're going to win the division at this point because of this win on Thursday that really helps their chances. And on to number 9, I'm going to go with Dallas. The Cowboys, I've been a fan of all year, as you guys know, especially if you've been listening. I've kind of had them at the bottom of my top 10 because even with their losses, I feel like their roster is just too good to really not put them in contention for one of the top spots in the league. Dak Prescott's been playing out of his mind all year. Zeke is Zeke. There's no further explanation needed there. He's one of the best running backs in football. His stats aren't looking amazing this year, but he's still the man. Their O-line is one of the best in the league, if not the best. They have Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb. That's a big trio right there that not very many other trios can compete with. So that's why I have the Cowboys at 9. And not to mention their defense. Their defense is stellar as well. Byron Jones, DeMarcus Lawrence, Sean Lee, Jalen Smith. Van Der Esch is actually out this week, but he's good as well. So they really got guys all over that defense. My number 8 team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Really close one on Monday night against the Chargers. Ended up beating them by 1 score. Yeah, it was a scare for them, I think. And if they would have lost that game, they definitely wouldn't be in my top 10. But I really think the Chiefs can beat any team in the AFC. I might take some flack for this, but you can't game plan for this team. No matter what, no matter how bad they play, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Travis Kelce. It's almost impossible to game plan for that team, and their defense just needs to figure out how to stop people. I think that's the biggest issue, and I think that's where the Chiefs stand at this point. My number 7 team is the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners, I haven't been a fan of them all year, as you guys know. It's just, I don't trust Jimmy G, and I don't really trust their playmakers on offense. I think Kyle Shanahan's a great coach, and he can design some really good plays. But I don't necessarily trust their offense. Their defense is stellar, as we've said. They might have a top 5 defense in the league at this point, but I don't think their offense can really match up to their defensive play. And my number 6 team is the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson's playing at an MVP level this year. As we all know, the dude's a baller. Chris Carson's playing really well in the backfield. Tyler Lockett's having a huge year, being Russell Wilson's number 1 target. DK Metcalf is having a big rookie year. And Josh Gordon, we don't know what to think of Josh Gordon. I'm 50-50 on him. I don't know if he'll make a huge impact in Seattle, but I think he's just kind of an extra guy to have that. Especially if a guy like DK Metcalf gets hurt again. Josh Gordon can slide right in, no problem. One thing with them, Jadeveon Clowney does have to get healthy, though. He's questionable for this week, I believe. So if Clowney gets healthy, that defense is even scarier, and Seahawks can move up. And this might be looking similar to last week. My number 5 team is the Saints. I think they're better with Teddy Bridgewater. I gotta say it. I know it's hard to bench Drew Brees, and I don't blame Sean Payton for putting him in. I just think Teddy Bridgewater is the better QB. But this Saints team is still amazing. Michael Thomas is playing out of this world. So, I mean, he's on pace to break the catches record this year, which is really impressive. I believe Marvin Harrison holds it. If not, it's either him or Antonio Brown. They're 1 and 2, I believe. But yeah, the Saints are a really good team. They have a really good defense. They can throw the ball over the yard. They have Kamara. They have Murray. So I think that, and their offensive line is good as well, not to mention them. And yeah, my number 4 team, Green Bay. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football. I think Russell Wilson is making a strong point for that, but I still have Aaron Rodgers at 1. Aaron Jones is playing out of his mind this year as well. Devontae Adams is finally getting healthy. He's on my fantasy team, and it's been rough these past couple weeks not knowing if he's going to play or not. But it looks like he's going to be healthy this week and good to go, which is a great sign for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Especially the receiving core, when you look at it, isn't great, but Aaron Rodgers kind of makes them work. So that's why I do have the Packers up there. Jair Alexander's playing out of his mind, and that defense is really good. My number 3 team, biased or not, it's the Minnesota Vikings. Coming back from 20-0 against the Broncos is no small feat. Teams were 1-99 previously, 0-99 previously when facing a 20-point halftime deficit. The Vikings changed that narrative, turned it around. Captain Kirk leading the charge. I think might be a bit controversial, but I think Kirk has officially vaulted himself into the MVP conversation. I don't know if it's time to put him there yet or not. I think I would consider it, but I think Kirk is definitely elevating himself into the MVP conversation, leading that comeback against the Broncos. I'll talk about that more later for sure. And I cheated again. I'm going to go with a tie at number 1. The Ravens and the Patriots, 1A and 1B. Put them however you want. The Ravens are so good. They demolished the Texans. It's hard to not have them up here. I mean, you really can't. Lamar Jackson playing at an MVP level, we know that. Mark Ingram's playing really well. Their offensive line is holding up. The receiving core, there's questions, but I think they are really good still. And their defense is also playing out of their mind. They have the second best secondary in football for my money. Maybe it's even the best at this point. I don't even know. If it's not the Ravens, it's the Patriots for my money. And yeah, there's not much to be said on that team. We've talked about it in multiple episodes. And my other number 1 team is the Patriots. I mean, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. I don't think I need to elaborate very more on that. The Patriots are a great team, and I think they deserve to be tied for the number 1 spot. And now I'm actually going to move on to some NFL storylines, and there's a few of them that I just want to touch base on and kind of give you guys my opinion on them. One of them is actually going to be, can the Oakland Raiders sneak into the playoffs? They are the most under-the-radar team this year. Nobody is talking about them. I don't really understand why. John Gruden has done a hell of a job this year with that team. Like, when you look at that team, you don't necessarily think, oh, they're a playoff team for sure. But Josh Jacobs is amazing. He was a great draft pick. Cleveland Farrell, people questioned it. I still would question it. I don't think he's playing amazing. But when you have all those first-round picks, you can take chances on guys like Cleveland Farrell, and you're going to get for sure guys like Josh Jacobs. I really like it. And John Abrams out for the year, too. That's crazy with, realistically, I mean, 1 first-round pick playing to expectation. How they can do that. And Derek Carr has proven haters wrong. People hated on Derek Carr. They think that he's one of the worst quarterbacks in football. They think that he can't throw the deep ball. He is playing really good football. He's thrown to Tyrell Williams a good amount, and Darren Waller's also having a breakout year, which is really fun to see, kind of a guy that converted from wide receiver go to tight end and have such a great year. I think that the Raiders, they can make some noise in the playoffs even. They're just a team that you don't really want to face. They can play any style because I don't think they're confident. They're a confident bunch, but They know that they're not the most talented team on the field, but they play hard. John Gruden's done something to them. I don't know what, but whatever Gruden's putting in their cereal, they're really giving him effort, and that's good to see out of a football team. Another storyline, I gotta talk about it. The Vikings come back from 20-0. I was watching this game, and it was hard to watch in that first half. I had confidence, I had hope, but once I saw that 0-99 record, that was really going down the drain. I think that missed kick by McManus, I believe, at the start of the third quarter, was huge in that game. Would have made it 23-0, I believe, and that just kind of extends the lead to a fourth possession. And it's not technically a fourth possession, but if we all know, it's really hard to get 2-point conversions in football. So it's essentially a four-possession game at that point. And I just think Kirk did something to inspire the guys. I'd assume Mike Zimmer's speech at halftime was, how do I say this? Very explicit, rattled. He definitely laid into those guys at halftime, no doubt about it, and kind of lit a fire under their butts. They played well. I mean, there's not much to say. The defense stepped up in the second half, finally putting a stop to that Broncos offense, which was playing pretty well. We did have 2 fumbles in the game, which I do not love to see. Kirk had one of them, and I believe we had the other one on a kick return, or punt return. I can't remember exactly which one. But yeah, I think that the game overall was just a up and down game, and the Vikings decided to finally play some football, and they showed who was the better team. They showed that the Minnesota Vikings come to play, and I think that the Vikings will kind of learn from this and realize to not underestimate teams. And really, once if you're playing a lesser caliber team, you just got to put them out right away. You can't give them hope in that first half, and that's what the Vikings did. But the Vikings did come back and diminish that hope, which is really good to see. The team that I obviously support. Yeah, we have a lot of Vikings fans listening, so I think I mentioned earlier, Kirk might be in the MVP conversation at this point. Nobody has that big comeback win that I can really think of, but coming back from 20 plus is impossible to do at this point with all the offense. And Kirk showed up. I mean, he's proven everybody wrong. The Broncos have a great defense, and Kirk is just balling out of his mind. It's great to see. And I think Dalvin Cook could also be in the MVP conversation. Dalvin is, I don't know. He didn't play very well, but he's still maybe the best running back in football at this point. The dude is absolutely nuts, and it's really great to see Dalvin finally getting it together after that ACL tear. And I want to talk about the Vikings defense quickly. This defense has been together for a while, and at first it started out as really a secondary-heavy defense. You really relied on that secondary back in the day with Xavier Rhodes, Sendejo, and Harrison Smith, and then you kind of had that fourth corner. Or not fourth corner, but fourth DB in there, which was most likely Trey Waynes, but he was the weak point of that. Now it's becoming just Harrison Smith back there, and they're still getting the job done. Anderson Sendejo did play well, but Xavier Rhodes, I think he'll be gone after this year. I really do. Unless he can turn it around in the latter parts of the season. I do think Xavier Rhodes will be gone. And then we'll probably extend Trey Waynes, because Trey Waynes has been playing pretty well. Or did we extend him? I don't remember. But Trey Waynes will be on the team next year, I think. And yeah, Harrison Smith is the man. We all know that. He's been one of the best defensive players in football over the past 8-9 years. And then we obviously know the pass rush with Daniil Hunter, Everson Griffin. I mean, those are 2 of the best edge rushers in football. And then, I don't know if you want to say Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but I think he could put his name in the discussion. Eric Kendricks. He is the most underrated defensive player in football at this point. The dude makes every play in pass coverage. He can stop the run. He is maybe the best linebacker in football. And he's just playing out of his mind. I love to see Eric Kendricks. He's been one of my favorite players on the team for a while. Excuse me. Moving on. I'm just going to talk a little bit this week about the Patriots, because Tom Brady was listed as questionable, and it looks like there's a really high chance that Jarrett Stidham could come in and start. And I think this gives really Stidham a chance to prove himself, and he was worth that mid-round draft choice that the Patriots spent on him. I am actually really interested to see because I like Stidham out of college. I didn't love him, but I think he really does fit the Patriots system very well. He has a similar play style to Tom Brady. And I think Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels together can really help this young kid grow and eventually maybe turn him into a high caliber quarterback. Maybe Tom Brady's caliber. I'm not going to get there yet, but yeah, it'll be fun to watch on Sunday and see how Stidham can lead the team and if he can really get stuff going without Tom Brady. So now we're going to get into kind of our fun section, the fantasy and betting part of the show, which I think is really one of the fun sections because we can kind of manipulate it to do different things. Manipulate's maybe not the right word, but we can have some fun with it, change things up every now and then, and just see how things go. So I'm just going to start with our fantasy start, sit, and waiver. You guys love this one. And my start this week is going to be Joe Mixon. I told you to start him, sit him, I believe, last week. This week you got to start him. He had a big week last week, despite what I said. I think he can really get things going. It is against Pittsburgh, though, who does have a pretty tough and rough defense. But I think Joe Mixon can still have a big game, and maybe the Bengals pull a win off. I'm not guaranteeing that whatsoever, but I think there's a chance that the Bengals can get a win this week. My sit is going to be Darius Geis. I just don't think he's ready. He's 100% yet, and he's not going to get the full workload. Eventually, maybe later in the year, around week 15, you can start him maybe for that playoff run that you're in. But right now, I just would wait a week or two and just kind of put him in a wait-and-see mode, but definitely have him rostered, no doubt. And my waiver wire pickup this week is Jalen Samuels. The reason I think Jalen Samuels is here is because a lot of people dropped him because they thought James Conner was coming back, but he will not be playing this week, so Jalen Samuels is the guy you should snatch up right now. And you should start him too. I mean, Jalen Samuels, we saw what he did without James Conner, and I think he can repeat that performance. And now we're going to get on to our spread picks this week. I went 3-0 last week, surprisingly. Ashton went 2-1, and Lucas went 2-1 as well. That moves me to 8-7 on the year. Ashton is 9-6, and Lucas is 12-3. I don't know how in the world he does it, but he just keeps on going. So, with that being said, I am taking the Raiders minus 2.5 at the Jets. Reason being, the Jets aren't a great football team, and the Raiders are out to prove something. They really want to get that 6th seed. So I'm taking the Raiders, no doubt, in this one. I think it might be a blowout. My next game is the Bucs at the Falcons. I'm taking the Falcons minus 4.5, coming off a big win against the Saints. That's a game that I really didn't talk about, but I think that the Falcons can really get some stuff done on offense, and I just think that they can outscore the Bucs, and the Falcons' defense is also better than the Bucs in my opinion, so that's why I'm taking the Falcons at minus 4.5. My other game this week, I really wanted to pick an underdog. So I'm taking the Panthers plus 9.5 against the Saints in New Orleans. I just don't think the Saints are going to win by that much. I think it'll be a really close game, come down to a one-possession ball game at the end. Panthers are a division rival of the Saints, so that's kind of why I have that. And I'm just going to tell you Ashton's picks this week. Ashton is taking the Ravens at the Rams minus 3.5 on Monday Night Football. The Ravens are a good pick. I mean, they just coming off a big win against the Texans. I think they might ride that momentum into a big win against the Rams. But also, I don't think you should count out the Rams. I think the Rams can maybe pull off a sneaky win against the Ravens, especially with the Rams trying to get into that playoff hunt in the NFC, but it will be tough. Next game Ashton is picking is Seattle at Philadelphia, and he's taking Seattle plus 1.5. I think this is a really good pick for a couple reasons, but Seattle just coming off a bye week, they're going to have that extra rest. And Philadelphia is coming off a tough game in New England. They're roughed up a little bit. I do think Philly could be an upset potential here, but I think Seattle should be the pick right here if you're going to bet this game. Ashton's next game, is going to be the Dolphins at the Browns, and he's taking the Browns minus 10.5. I And this is a really good pick. I mean, there's not much to say. The Browns, they've been up and down this whole year. You don't know what to expect from week to week. But I think against the Dolphins, they can pull off a big win and win by a big margin, obviously. And Lucas didn't give me his picks this week, but I'll just take his word for it whenever he tells me. Hopefully it's before Sunday and I can get the podcast Instagram going and maybe put it on Instagram. But yeah, but he's a trustworthy guy, so we'll trust his spread picks. He'll probably tell me tonight, but will probably be after I'm done recording. So sorry about that. So now I'm going to get right into the NBA section of the show. This is actually being recorded Saturday morning. I stopped after the NFL section last night. And yeah, we're just going to pick it back up as we left off, right to NBA. I'm going to do my power rankings, my top 5. At number 5, I'm going to have the Houston Rockets. They're playing really good basketball right now. James Harden is a man amongst playing like a man amongst boys. He is just absolutely killing it this year, and he's probably my MVP so far. Number 4, I got the Bucks. Giannis, another guy playing at an MVP level. You couldn't go wrong if you voted for him as MVP. I wouldn't be mad at you. I think that he is playing as one of the best players in basketball at this point. Number 3, I have the Clippers. Getting Paul George back is huge. I think they'll kind of go on a run here and probably move up to number 2 before too long. And number 2, I have the Denver Nuggets. They're on a roll right now. Ever since they beat the T-Wolves when I went to that game, they have not stopped rolling, and I think they're going to keep going. The Nuggets are a really good basketball team. And number 1, we all know who it is. It's the Lakers. They're the best team in basketball right now. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. LeBron and AD are amazing. They're balling out this year, and it's amazing to see. And I think LeBron is really showing people that he is still the best player in the world, and it's hard to debate that whatsoever. Now, since it's the 10th episode of the podcast, I'm going to do a little special top 10. And we're going to do the top 10 duos this year so far. Just this year, not necessarily who we think will be the best or future top 10. Who I think are the top 10 duos this year and who's playing the best. Number 10, I have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I think they could be higher on this list, but they're not really scoring as much as you'd like them to. But I mean, they're a top 10 duo. Them two together, they play so well. Jokic is one of the best passers in the league, even though he's 7 foot tall. He is so skilled; it's awesome to see. And Jamal Murray, the dude, whenever he gets hot, he is hot. The dude does not miss if he's on a roll. You see him in the fourth quarter. He's one of the best players when he's getting on a roll. Number 9, I have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is the best defensive player in basketball. I have no problem in saying that. And Donovan Mitchell is scoring out of his mind as usual. He's shooting pretty efficiently, I believe, this year. And yeah, when you have those two, you have a great offensive player and the best defensive player in basketball. It's a great duo right there. And Rudy Gobert is great at setting screens, rolling to the basket, finishing at the rim, and then obviously blocking shots. We all know him for that. Number 8, I have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Now, Ben Simmons is not having a great year, but he's still passing the ball really well. He's shooting efficiently. He made a 3, which I kind of want to talk about that. He's going to shoot more now, and it's going to be fun to watch. He won't shoot him at a high percentage. He'll probably shoot him about 25% or something like that. But as long as he can make those corner threes once in a while, I think that's really going to put a lot of stress on the defense and just open up the floor so much for the Sixers team. Because if all 5 players on that team can shoot, and they're the biggest team in basketball, that's so hard to defend, and I think the Sixers should be a team to watch out for. They started really hot, but they've been kind of knocking down recently. They've lost a few straight. But I think they can really turn this around, and if Ben Simmons... I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a lights-out shooter by any means. He's going to be the worst shooter on that ball club, but if he can just figure out how to shoot occasionally, just take the shot when it's there, then I think that'll be a huge, huge, huge addition to the Sixers offense. And number 7, it's more of just like a one-man show. It's not necessarily both, but I had to pick somebody else. I have Luka and Kristaps. Kristaps is not playing very well this year. Defensively, he's up there in blocks. He's up there in defensive win shares. So that's why he's on here instead of like Dorian Finney-Smith, which is crazy. But Luka is, oh man, he's an MVP candidate, no doubt about it. and he is balling out for the Mavericks. They're showing that trade was so worth it last year with the Hawks, and it's not like Trae Young is playing shabby either. So I think that was one of the rare trades that worked out perfectly for both teams, and neither team is mad about who they acquired in that trade. Number 6, Dame and CJ. They've been together for 5-6 years at this point. It's been a while, and they're just playing. I mean, they're playing good ball. CJ's averaging, I believe, 22 a game. Dame is around 30, I believe. I'm gonna check this quickly, but they're just playing. They play so well together. They know each other's play styles so well, and they just really fit each other's game perfectly. And Damian Lillard's averaging just under 29 points per game, which is still amazing. So that's why they're number 6. Defensively, they struggle a little bit, but I think that their offensive game makes up for that. Number 5, you could argue this is a little higher. They could be a little higher, but I have Giannis and Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's effective field goal percentage this year has been crazy. He's shooting almost 40% from 3, and I mean, you could argue Eric Bledsoe was even this number 2 spot, but I put Chris Middleton there just because of his offensive capabilities. But Giannis is really the story here. He's averaging 30 points per game, 12-ish rebounds, I believe. The dude's an MVP candidate again. He won MVP last year. Giannis, he's amazing. There's nothing much to be said about that. Number 4, now I debated even putting these guys on this list, but I ended up doing it just because of the way Paul George has come out this year. It's obviously Kawhi and PG. You could have put Lou Williams on here with Kawhi, but I'm putting Paul George there because Paul George, ever since coming back from his injury, has been amazing. His shoulder's healthy, and he is playing ball like he's never played it before. With the Thunder, obviously he had that hurt shoulder, and he was still an MVP candidate that whole year. Oh, excuse me. And now I think he's kind of going to return to that, one of the best 5 players in basketball. Maybe not top 5, but top 10 for sure. And then obviously Kawhi Leonard. We all know him. He's a great defender. One of the best perimeter defenders in basketball, if not the best. And then he's long. He hasn't been shooting the 3 very well this year. I believe he's in like around 28%, which is kind of alarming to see. But I do think he can turn it around. And then the load management stuff I don't love. I probably should have put them a little lower, but I just think the quality of these 2 players is hard to look over. Number 3, Harden and Russ. Russ is being himself. I mean, he's averaging, I believe, 20-something points per game, which is still really good. I mean, people are saying that Russ is having a really bad year, and I mean, I just don't think so. Everyone knows James Harden's the best player on that team, and I think Russ is almost accepting that. And he's really playing off of James Harden pretty well. I think they've only lost 5 games this year. That's why they're number 5 on my list. And then James Harden. I mean, the man is amazing. 38 points per game. Like, what? That's never been seen since like Wilt Chamberlain. I believe Michael Jordan's highest was 37 a game. So if James Harden can keep this 38 a game, that's crazy. And he's 7th in the league in assists with 7.8. I don't know how he does it. James Harden might be the most underrated basketball player in the history. Like, I'm pretty confident in saying that. Nobody respects this man's game, but he is just destroying the league. He's setting the league on fire. And if he gets a championship, I think he can be in the conversation for potentially one of the 10 greatest players of all time. I know that's really hard to say right now, but I think he's already the 3rd best shooting guard of all time, and he has a chance to become the 2nd. I'm not the greatest Kobe fan. I mean, some of you might have known that, but I mean, if he keeps this up, he's on his way to passing Kobe if he gets a couple titles. Number 2. Now, some could say this is biased. Some could say this is logical. I would say it's logical, but it's whatever you think. Cat and Wiggins, the only duo this year averaging more than 20, with both players averaging more than 25 points per game. Wiggins had what can I say? He's near the tops of the league in 4th quarter scoring. He's becoming a really good defender, and he is the best passer on our team. I think he's a better passer than Jeff Teague. Not by much. Jeff Teague's still a great passer, but I just think Andrew Wiggins, he just provides so much to this ball club. When he attacks the rim, drives and kicks, he probably has 10 drives and kicks per game. It's crazy. He finds open shooters. He's averaging his career high in assists. I believe his career high in rebounds and his career high in points. Andrew Wiggins is definitely the most improved player this year, unless you want to say Luka, but I don't like having sophomores as my most improved. So I think Andrew Wiggins is the most improved player, no doubt, this year. And then Cat, there's not much to be said. He's third in the league in three-pointers. He started horribly from three. He was around 20% to start the year. He's really turning that around. He's shooting a lot more of them, which I kind of like to see. He's letting Wiggs run the offense, and he's kind of just formatting himself around Wiggs, and he's still getting 26 points per game with 13 rebounds or so. And he's the best big man in basketball, unless you want to argue maybe Joel or AD. And speaking of AD, LeBron and AD are number one. I mean, there's no debate right now on who's the best duo in basketball. LeBron he's out of his mind. Anthony Davis is the best player LeBron's ever played with. Or maybe he's the best fit to LeBron. I don't think Dwayne Wade was a great fit to LeBron. They're just two great players, and they made it work. But I think Anthony Davis fits LeBron's play style so well. Anthony is a great defender. He's one of the best defensive bigs in basketball. And LeBron is becoming, in year whatever it is, 15 or 16, he has been one of the best defensive players this year. It's crazy how he's putting in effort. He's not taking many days off. And LeBron and AD they're the top dogs right now, and the Lakers are the best team in basketball, and they should be the heavy title favorites in my opinion. Now I'm just gonna mention a couple guys here. Luka Doncic and James Harden are two players that I think are two of the top three for MVP candidacy right now, along with LeBron. And I think these two, especially James Harden, need to get more recognition for what they're doing. Like, Luka is getting 30-point triple-doubles, and he's averaging them, which is just crazy. I mean, that's a Russell Westbrook type run. And James Harden is averaging 40 points per game. I think, like I said, James Harden could be in the conversation for one of the 10 greatest basketball players of all time when he gets all said and done. At least in my opinion, maybe not other opinions. I don't see why everyone hates him. He might not be the funnest player to watch, but when he does a step back three and gets an and one, that's pretty fun to watch in my opinion. So I think these two need to get some more recognition for sure. No doubt about it. Now I might come back to NBA later, but I'm just going to move right on to the MLB. Yasmani Grandal signing a big contract with the Sox, 4 years, $73 million. This is a great signing for the White Sox. I think he'll add a lot. I don't know what they do with James McCann, though. They're probably just going to let him walk. I'm not even sure if he's a free agent, but I'd assume they will. And James McCann, he was an all-star this year, but Yasmani Grandal is a better player than James McCann. He's a great defender. And he hits dingers, man. I think he's the top catcher in the league over the past 4 or 5 years in homers. And I think that adds a lot to the White Sox lineup. He'll probably be batting 5th or 6th. And switch hitting catcher, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, switch hitting catcher. You don't see that very often. I think you can't really go wrong with Yasmani Grandal. He's one of the best catchers in baseball, in my opinion. Sorry I'm talking fast. I just noticed that. Oh, well. I'll try to fix it. But now I'm going to get on to probably the most controversial part of this episode. Who would be on my Hall of Fame ballot? And in what order? Now, you guys are going to hate me for this after you hear the order, but hear me out and just kind of... I do have a big ballot. Most people would stick to 5 or 6 max. I have 9. The max you can go is 10. I would put 9 players on my Hall of Fame ballot. And at number 9, I would have Scott Rowland. He had just above a 70 career award. That's kind of the threshold for getting in the Hall of Fame. I think he's in. Number 8, Derek Jeter. Now, he is the most overrated player in the history of baseball. I have no problem saying that. Yes, he's the Hall of Famer, but just because he made 2 great defensive plays in his whole career does not make him the greatest defensive player of all time. I don't know how he won Gold Gloves. He didn't deserve them. He won 5 Gold Gloves, and he's statistically, I believe he has the second worst UZR in the history of baseball, which is just basically a measure of defensive efficiency and defensive range factor. So Jeter's there. His career OPS is the low 800s, which isn't great. His WAR is I believe it's around 80. So that's why he's kind of in there. And he obviously won the rings. That's the argument that most people are going to have. But he's just not very high for me. And I have no problem saying that Derek Jeter is the most overrated player in baseball history. Number 7, I have Todd Helton. Now, I understand the Coors Field factor, but he hit over 300. He got on base, or he had an on base percentage over 400 and a slugging percentage over 500. That's a Hall of Famer for me. I understand the Coors Field factor. I don't really care. He's a Hall of Famer. He played really good defense at first base, and he had a prolonged career. He's definitely in for me. Next, I will have Curt Schilling. He's just really a guy that doesn't get talked about much. He's more known for his broadcasting career, honestly. But he was a great player, and he's in. There's not much to be said about that. Number 4. I'm debating 3 and 4 right now. I'm probably going to put Larry Walker at 4. He's a Hall of Famer. Don't even question it. He's one of the best defensive players. He's probably the best defensive player on this ballot. And the dude was amazing. The Coors Field factor was not a factor for him. He was better on the road, which is just crazy to see. And Larry Walker's a Hall of Famer. If you argue that, you're wrong. This is his final year. He should be in, no questions asked. Number 3, Billy Wagner. A guy that most people aren't going to be talking about much in this ballot, but he was one of the best closers of all time. If Trevor Hoffman would even be in consideration for the Hall of Fame, Billy Wagner is just better than Trevor Hoffman. I don't care what anybody says. And Billy Wagner, I believe he has the second best career OPS against in the history of baseball. You know who number 1 is? Mariano Rivera is number 1. Billy Wagner, I believe, is number 2, followed by Kershaw and Koufax. Yeah, Billy Wagner is a Hall of Famer. It's no questions asked. He's in there. And then number 2, Roger Clemens. He might be the best pitcher in the history of baseball, and he's top 5, no questions asked, in my opinion. You have guys like Koufax and Walter Johnson and Clayton Kershaw and Bob Feller. I understand. You can argue all those guys to be the greatest pitcher ever. I think Roger Clemens can be in that conversation. I don't care that he took steroids. You guys heard that in the last episode if you watched it all the way through. I don't care. Everyone was taking him. And, he's number 2. There's not much to be said. He was lights out on the mound. And no batter wanted to face Roger Clemens. Number 1, Barry Bonds. Best player ever. The best player in the history of baseball is Barry Bonds. I understand he was a horrible teammate. I understand he took steroids. I understand that he never won a World Series. I don't care. I don't care. He is the most feared hitter in the history of baseball. He's the best player in the history of baseball. He had a 40-40 season. He won multiple Gold Gloves. 7 MVPs. 7 MVPs. That's insane. That's the most ever by, I believe the next is 4. Mike Trout is tied with 4. I don't even know, maybe A-Rod. But, Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball, in my opinion. He could do everything. Oh, excuse me. Barry Bonds is the greatest. It's not close. I don't see why it's argued. I could understand the World Series argument and the teammate argument and the steroid. There's 3 arguments you can make to say that he's not, but I just don't think they're valid. The steroid one, I've expressed my grievances on that one. I don't think that it's a legit argument at all. And then when you have someone that gets intentionally walked with the bases loaded in a 2-run game, it worked. That's crazy. Could you imagine if Mike Trout got walked with the bases loaded right now, I don't even know who hits third for that team. I'm sorry, Angels fans. I didn't want to bring that up. But Barry Bonds is the greatest player in the history of baseball, and he's a Hall of Famer. No questions asked. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. I just took a short break and kind of looked over my notes and see what I had left, and I was like, well, I didn't have much left. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. I'm sorry for it being a short one. We might actually have a couple more where it will be by myself because these guys are busy with basketball, and it's really hard to get our schedules to mix with me working and stuff. But hopefully we can get the boys back on here next week and get their ranking and stuff. Make sure to check out the Instagram at the Sports Enthusiast. Twitter is at SportsENTPod. Check us out on both of there. Give us a like. Share the podcast. That's the one thing that we kind of need to get going. We need to share the podcast. We need to expand our reach per se, and get people from different places listening. It's kind of just our hometown right now. If you can tell one of your friends that are big sports fans about it. Maybe if they want to come on the episode, let us know if you want to be on the episode. We're open to having guests. We've had a couple in mind, and we just haven't had them on yet. Hopefully, we get to that eventually. And yeah, it's really, we want to grow, we want to expand, we want to be better. That's really the one thing that me, Ash, and Lucas talk about a lot. We want to be better. We want to expand our reach, and we really want to have a good audience to support us. Watching every episode, listening to it whenever they can. We understand everyone's busy, and we think, even listen to it while you're at work, listen to it while you're driving to wherever, while you're driving to your grandpa's house on Saturday evening before the games. I don't know. However you want to re-listen to it. Maybe listen to it Sunday morning, right before all the football games. See how everything stacked up from last week. Kind of recall and look ahead to next week. Look at the best lines that you might see. So I think that's really one thing, is just expanding our reach. So we want to thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you listening all the way through. That's something that we also want to grow on, is getting people to listen to the whole thing, because most people don't really hear our MLB and NBA topics, because a lot of people are really here for football. But we think that if you listen through the whole thing, there's a lot of knowledge that you can gain throughout this whole thing. And we're trying to gain knowledge too. That's the one thing that we also strive for. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I'm not going to ramble on too much. Hopefully the guys are on next week. If not, it might just be me again. We'll see. Let me know how I did. If I was horrible, if I was good. I understand it's better with the boys, but we're going to try our best to get them on here. So thank you guys for listening, and peace out, everyone.